They do not belong to the world, just as I do not belong to the world. Our Gospel passage for today, from the 17th chapter of John's Gospel, forms part of the speech and prayer that John attributes to Jesus after the supper in the upper room and before he's arrested by the temple authorities. This is a long and important passage as John sets out his understanding of what Jesus himself believed, and we hear only a small part of it today. Like much of John's writing, it sounds complicated. It's not a simple narrative of a miracle or a prophecy, and we might wonder how it relates to our lives now. But part of the key to understanding is to think of the community for which John was writing. The church was not a church as we think of it now, visible everywhere and with a long tradition behind it. No, it would not have even have called itself a church. It was a scattering of small communities in towns and cities, far apart from each other, threatened by the far larger number of people with different beliefs, and by the alien power of Rome, which, although tolerant of most local religions, did not approve of those who appealed to a power higher than the emperor. Being a Christian when John was writing was a risky business. Jesus, who at this point is praying to the Father, is asking God to take over the protection of the disciples after Jesus has left them, and in doing so he makes the extraordinary claim that they are in the world, but they are not of the world. And these words are true for us today, as they were for the 11 disciples at that point, and for the community in which John lived and wrote. If we puzzle over what not being in the world could look like, we can remember that Jesus is not speaking only of the physical world which God himself created, but the world insofar as it has rebelled against God, the many ways in which humankind has chosen darkness over light and has set itself up against the values of God's kingdom. Seen from within that world, Jesus has indeed come from somewhere else, and so have the disciples, now that they've accepted the call of Jesus and acknowledged him as Lord and the Son of God. As people set apart, as Jesus himself was set apart, he is asking God to protect his followers from the tricks and traps set by the human world, that threatening, risky world through which they are now to journey to proclaim the good news of the life, death and resurrection of Jesus and the ultimate return of Christ and the establishment of God's kingdom on earth. What Jesus has begun with his tiny band of followers, he asks God to bring to glorious conclusion. John has picked up this theme to reassure his own community that God is with them, whatever hardships they might be experiencing, and we today are the successors to that tiny band. We too, by accepting the values that Jesus taught and acknowledging God, the Father, the Son and the Holy Spirit as the fount of all created life, including our own, are set apart from the false values of the world created by humans. We are protected by God's loving presence in our lives and his love for each of us as individuals. We are called to be living witnesses of the power of the gospel and to live faithfully and securely as disciples, not accepting the world as it is today, but working to change it into a world that reflects the values that Jesus has taught us.